Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Peter Winnick. I'm the founder and CEO at Thought Leadership Leverage, and you're joining us on the podcast, which is Leveraging Thought Leadership. Today, my guest is Reid Blackman. He's the founder and CEO of Virtue, which is an AI ethical risk consultancy. He's the author of Ethical Machines, which just came out fairly recently by HBR Press, and he's the host of the podcast by the same name. So without getting into all the nitty gritty and the amazing companies he's worked with and articles he's written, I'd rather just talk to him because he's sitting right here. So welcome, Reid. How are you?
So far, so good, but the podcast just started. We'll see.
There we go. That's encouraging. There we go. So what is, in terms of categories of jobs that didn't exist 10 years ago,
Yeah, seriously.
what does an AI ethical risk consultancy CEO do on a typical day?
On a typical day. Well, most of the work consists in, if I'm not, writing and that sort of thing, advising mostly senior executives on how to design what I call an AI ethical risk program. They often
Mhm.
call them responsible AI programs. But the bottom line is, all right, look, we're this large organization, we're a Fortune 500. We've come to the point at which AI is coming through the cracks. It's coming through HR, it's coming through in-house development, it's coming through marketing, et cetera, et cetera. How do we get our hands around this thing so that we can manage the risks of it?
Got it. Because one of the interesting things that you said there, it's not just, well, make this the CIO's problem because everybody's touching it in some
Sure.
way, shape, or form. And if they're not today, certainly they will be very soon.
Yeah, it's fine for the CIO to own the program, to
Yeah.
own the AI, but yes, you have to think a lot about, we're not just designing it in-house. It's, every startup wants to sell their new AI solution to every department, every role in your organization. So how do we get our hands around that? So I think that in a lot of cases, AI sort of acts like a Trojan horse because HR brings it in, and before you know it, you're facing down a lawsuit for discriminatory hiring practices that were the result of your AI being used in a certain way.
Right. So give me a little bit about your path, because I would imagine that a young Reed didn't sit around saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it was AI ethical risk consultancy.
Nope.
There was probably
Yeah, yeah, no, I didn't quite see it coming. So, no, young Reed became obsessed with philosophy. Uh, Senior year of college, it was either law school or go get a PhD in philosophy, and I realized it basically be a betrayal of my identity to stop doing philosophy at this point. So I went off and I got a PhD in philosophy, and then I became a professor. I was a professor for 10 years. I always specialized in ethics. There's
Mm,
multiple branches of philosophy. That was always the most interesting to me. And I can get into details if you like, but at some point it occurred to me that I could start an ethics consultancy of some kind, but I didn't see any kind of market for that sort of thing. And you fast forward a few more years, maybe even more, and I was really keeping sort of, my eyes open. And that's when I heard things like Me Too and Black Lives Matter and hashtag delete Uber and hashtag delete Facebook or boycott, whatever. And I thought, okay, if companies don't get their ethical houses in order, that's going to be really bad for them on social media and ultimately news media. I could sell that. And so there's lots more details to that, of course, and lots more behind my motivation. But that's how I ultimately came to start this company. It's because I realized, oh, things are going sideways. And also, I don't know how exactly, but maybe it was sort of in the academic ether that AI was coming and things were going to go sideways with it. And so that was also part of the vision when I started the business is
yeah.
I want to really focus in on AI at some point when that becomes sufficiently relevant to the marketplace.
Right. So you saw it early. So it's this intersection of philosophy and tech. But then, you sort of fast forward through, oh, and then I was a professor for 10 years.
Yep.
Most people then don't leave academia to take the risk to be an entrepreneur. They say,
No.
I hired a professor after 38 years, right? Like, live happily ever after and,
Yeah, sure. Sure.
whatever. So why did you decide to leave the confines of academia?
Confines is the right word. So there's a lot to say here. One thing that I glossed over is that when I was in grad school, I started a fireworks wholesaling company based out of Connecticut, and
Wait,
I
wait.
started
You're at across the road. Do I become a philosopher or an attorney, but I'll be in somewhat of an arms dealer selling fireworks?
our deal was a bit strong, but yeah, as a grad student, I was making bupkis, and
Okay.
my
That's a
father.
technical term. The bupkis thing is a technical term.
It
Cool.
is a technical term, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, bupkis Inc. And so there's why how did I start a fireworks business in particular, also part of a story, but my dad was a wholesaler, is a
Yep.
wholesaler. Anyway, so I started selling fireworks out of my two-door Honda, going sort of store to store. Like the trunk was crammed with fireworks, and the back seat and the passenger seat was crammed with fireworks. And my dad told me where he doesn't have any customers. This was in Connecticut. And then I just sort of drove around store to store selling my wares. And that went really well the first year and went even better the second year. So by the third year, I'm still in grad school. I rented a cargo van and I crammed that full of fireworks. Anyway, the business grew and each year to my surprise. And so, by the time I had a PhD, at some point I had a PhD and I was driving around in a van in a tank top listening to Led Zeppelin delivering fireworks. And I was like, okay, this has gotta stop. Why don't I hire someone to do my stuff? And then I'll go off to a coffee shop, I'll do my writing, I'll do my research, whatever, and then I'll check them in. And again, to make a long story short, because we've only got like 20 minutes total here, that's when I learned that managing people is a lot of work because I had 4 or 5 people working in the warehouse, pulling orders and loading trucks. I had 4 guys on the road making deliveries. And so I was doing a bigger business, but did not have the free time that I anticipated. But this is what planted the seed of, first of all, that was sort of obviously entrepreneurial. And that's what explains why once I was a professor during those 10 years, I became an advisor to startups as part of the entrepreneurship organization at the university. And I saw all these kids doing cool, new, interesting stuff. And I was like, I want to do something cool, new, and interesting. What would that be? Well, I love philosophy. I love ethics. I don't want to leave any of that. I wonder if there's such a thing as an ethics consultancy. And I looked around, I Googled it. I couldn't find anything outside of something, very narrow stuff in healthcare.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, there's nothing here. I'm just going to wait. And maybe something comes along and maybe so one day there's a market for it. Maybe there's not. And then we get back to Black Lives Matter to lead Facebook, blah, 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 blah. Cambridge Analytics scandal. That was a big one.
Yeah.
This was also around the time when all the big consultancies were coming out with these reports about how millennials want more meaningful work and they'll take lower pay for higher meaning, that sort of thing.
Yep.
And so that's, and then I was a professor at Colgate University, sort of the middle of nowhere. My wife and I are city folk, not country folk. We had 2 kids on the way. We had 1 kid already had arrived, and there's another one on the way, and sort of back and forth commute. Yes, my wife's career is Manhattan-based. That didn't work anymore. And anyways, we sort of put these social factors together with my finally seeing at least what I believe to be an opportunity. And so I left academia and I started Virtue.
So this is where things make total sense in the rearview mirror for thought leaders, where you've got, if I were to sort of dissect the smoothie that is you, it's like, 10% entrepreneur, 50% philosopher, whatever. And all those come together. So you've basically created the perfect situation, the perfect job that only you're suited, or probably only you are suited to have.
I mean, I don't want to be particularly braggadocious, but yeah, I mean, academics. I was never a normal academic. I mean, my grad student friends were not selling fireworks, making deals with oil companies to sell fireworks to all their gas stations, the convenience stores that they don't have that business experience. They're not that savvy. I grew up with half my family being from Brooklyn. There's just a level of sort of street savvy that most academics don't have. They don't have experience running a business. Yeah. So I sort of, in a pretty unique position. Plus my wife was sort of in a, at the time she was running a business, not her own, but someone else's. Just friends. So I had sort of people to talk to about it. So yeah, it all worked out.
Now you're getting, paid to solve these problems that really haven't been solved quite the way they need to be solved before, because, corporate ethics has been a thing for, let's say, quite a long time.
Yeah, sure.
That AI piece and the scale and the speed and the intensity at which good or bad things could happen in terms of reputationally brand and all that, it's huge.
If you're enjoying this episode of Leveraging Thought Leadership,
please make sure to subscribe. If you'd like to help spread the word about our podcast, please leave a 5-star review at ratethispodcast.com/LTL and share it with your friends. We're available on Apple Podcasts and on all major listening apps, as well as at thoughtleadershipleverage.com/podcast. So who inside of an organization, because I'm assuming Fortune 1000 kind of thing, is ultimately responsible for hiring you or not? Because I think a lot of thought leaders struggle with, hey, here's a problem. I'm uniquely qualified to fix it. When I go knocking on the doors at Citibank or IBM or whoever, whose door am I knocking on?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to say two things. One, you didn't ask a question, but I'm going to say, yes, that's exactly right about AI making everything more complicated. And we've had corporate ethics. But the truth is that I wasn't particularly interested in doing Black Lives Matter or DEI, whatever, or those non-tech ethics consulting early on. I just thought that's where the only market is right now. And I hope that the AI ethics stuff becomes relevant, that there's a market for it, because that's way more intellectually interesting to me for the exact reasons that you specified. It's so fast moving, it's complicated, they're novel problems. So the fact that it's sort of a novel puzzle to solve made it intellectually satisfying and stimulating for me, as opposed to don't sexually harass women. We know the answer here. Like it's not complicated. Okay,
Not an open-ended question, right?
right. Just don't do it. It's not, now you have to have people to stop doing it, but that's not intellectually challenging. I don't think it's just
Well, but stay there a minute, because I think
Yeah.
that is an interesting piece. In many instances, thought leaders have their models, their methods, their framework, a change management model method.
for sure.
And the thinking is, well, it kind of doesn't matter what change your organization is going through. I've got my model. I'm going to impose it on you, and it'll probably do better than most at getting you what you need. I would imagine your world, and maybe I'm wrong, is you do have your models, your methods, your frameworks, your research, etc. But it's not like there's been tens of thousands of cases to go against and 50 years of history.
Yeah.
Right? Is it agile, or how much of it is evergreen and how much of it is bespoke?
Okay. Okay. So it's very agile. Everything we do is bespoke because organizations are constructed in such different ways. I never went in with like a framework, something like that. Frankly, I barely have a grip on what the hell people mean when they say they've got a framework. Like it usually means they've got a pie chart with 4 buzzwords in it or something along those lines. And I just think, honestly, to sort of be, I'll say the controversial thing, which is I kind of regard frameworks as ways that experts try to convey things to people who don't know a damn thing. Like that's it. Think of it this way. You're a master expert surgeon. And when you go into a surgery, what's the framework she doesn't say, "Oh, I've got this framework. It's got 4 letters. I've got an acronym for how to do heart surgery." No, no, no. She cuts open, she assesses the situation. Of course, she's done this a million times before. But she sees what needs to be done. She sees, what's the highest priority here? How do I tackle that? But she's not sort of ham-fistedly. I don't know. There's some body part involved in ham.
And part
Take this framework and apply it to this particular heart surgery. If you had a beginner heart surgeon and they come in and they're like, "Okay, I cut this person open. Let me consult my framework." You'd be like, "Holy shit, this person is going to perform heart surgery." So I think frameworks, frankly, are kind of dumbed down versions of what the experts know. They're ways of communicating some expert level information to non-experts.
They're valuable on a couple levels, but as a communication tool to convey to others, we use change management again. Here's
3%.
cycle. Here's where we like to be. This is the part
Yes.
so it's actually you to feel stressed or whatever at this phase, but there's light on the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So value as a communication tool.
100%. Not saying it's not valuable, but what I'm saying is when you asked, "You're an expert, do you come with your framework?"
Right.
No, 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 no. I come with deep experience and understanding about what's going on. I need to assess the situation and see, okay, who's actually involved in this conversation when we're talking about AI ethical risk or responsible AI, whatever you want to call it. What problem are they trying to solve? Do they have the buy-in that they need? What are they really trying? Are they just trying to escape our regulatory compliance? Or are they trying to actually go above and beyond that? So there's a bunch of stuff I need to figure out about them before I say, okay, so here's where I think we should go. Maybe that we need a workshop to get the internal alignment that we need because most companies don't have it.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this then. So oftentimes with thought leaders, there's sort of 2 situations, right? Situation 1 is it would be wise for this organization to learn about ... ethics and AI and all that. And that would be a good thing for us to do because, that market's moving quickly and, it's a capability development and it's thought of as such inside the organization. Let's teach these leaders or managers the basics of AI and ethics, and we'll pay a certain price for that. Then there's the other side where it's more triage, right? Like, when do people buy burglar alarms? The day after their home was robbed, right? Not 2 years before or whatever.
Yeah.
So are you doing more triage or prophylactic kind of preventive capabilities development?
I'd say it's primarily prophylactic. I agree with you. I mean,
Really?
things go sideways with AI, then they're calling their PR firm. They're calling Edelman. They're not calling
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to sort of tell you how to fix your image or something along those lines. I'm going to tell you how to do it right. I'm going to tell you how moving forward, this is how you do things.
So
So
that's a PR optics problem when they're calling an Edelman, not a get to the future
100%.
not happen again.
Yeah, that's
You're
right.
a root cause guy then.
Yes. And I think that's why I get to work with these big brands, right? Because the big brands have brand reputation to lose.
Yeah.
Some small, medium-sized business, things go sideways with AI for them. Maybe they face a lawsuit, in which case they're going to call their lawyer. Again, not me. But these big brands, they want to use AI in a big way, and they know that the journalists are looking at them, social media is looking at them,
Yep.
and so they better get it right.
Interesting. And any trends that you're seeing in terms of it's more likely for a CPG to call you than a professional services firm, or what are you seeing in the marketplace in real time?
I work with several CPGs. What I found is that I think that people don't want to design a seatbelt if they don't know if the car works.
Right.
So they're designing cars right now, and they're like, should I invest in AI ethics or responsible AI? I don't need, let's see if the damn car moves from point A to point B. And does it move from point A to point B fast enough? Is there an ROI on it? If yes, okay, let's design a seatbelt. Now, who has the ability to see if the car can move? Healthcare is nervous as hell. Why? Because you're literally talking about life and death. CPG, you're talking about ketchup sales, chocolate sales, right? So CPG is moving faster in AI adoption because they're in a lower risk environment to begin with. And they are therefore also moving faster in the responsible AI ethics space.
Got it.
So I would have thought, and I was wrong. I did think, and I was wrong, that healthcare would be really early on because healthcare speaks the language of ethics. They've been doing it for decades. They have institutional review boards, ethics committees, IRBs.
Right.
But they've been the slowest. And I think they've been the slowest precisely because they're being the slowest to adopt. And they've been the slowest to adopt because they're in such a high risk situation.
Yeah. Well, and then I would imagine that there's tech that has to. So when you talk about autonomous driving and the trolley car dilemma and all that sort of stuff, somebody's got to tell the computers the decisions to make in a situation with could be an ethical situation, or that has to be programmed. Maybe some of that's becoming generative now.
Well, for whatever reason, I primarily, if not solely, get called upon by non-tech native companies. So the vast majority of my clients are non-tech native Fortune 500 companies. Healthcare, CPG, insurance, the mining industry, surprisingly,
Money. Okay.
e-commerce. But like OpenAI is not calling me. And I think it's because they think they've got it handled.
Well, there's a little bit of bro culture and arrogance there as well, potentially, where the
Yes, I said they think,
everything. So.
I put it nicely by saying they think they've got it handled.
Yeah.
But yes, that's exactly right.
Well, this has been awesome. I appreciate your time, and I love the journey from, whole lot of love and in a van and fireworks, bad Saturday Night Live skit, to academia, back to entrepreneur, like very, very cool. Because the journey is a big piece of it, at least from like, it's one of the most interesting things I learned from thought leaders is how the hell did you get here? Because like you said, you ask the heart surgeon how they get there. We know they went to medical school and then they did this and they did that and whatever. But thanks for sharing the journey and your story. We appreciate it.
I'll say one last thing about how I got there. Just try a bunch of things out. I mean, I'm not even. It's funny that I'm in a sort of risk management role or something along those lines because I'm a risk taker. I don't, I'll just try stuff. I'll just try it out. And so part of that journey was let's hire a PR person. Let's see if that works. Let's try email automation. Bad idea, but let's try it. Let's try LinkedIn automation. Let's try this relationships person. And so that's another thing that academics usually don't do, right? They stay in their narrow lane. They're like, I know this thing, and then they write a billion articles on that thing. But as you know, I know part of being an entrepreneur is I'm going to start a podcast. Let's see how that goes. And so part of it was that sort of fireworks.
But academics, the ship it, if you will, mindset has been beaten out of them in order to be a successful academic, right? It's ready, aim, and then you make fire. Yes. Ready, fire, ready, fire, aim. So I just think it's just a different capability to develop, a different mindset. I mean, academics are perfectionists, which is great.
Yeah,
Downside
right.
is they don't ship enough. They don't break things. They don't, they're afraid of, what happens if you publish an article and you're wrong? Okay, well, nobody,
Right.
like, get over it.
It's a lot. That's a lot of hedging.
The 7 people that read it will probably
Exactly.
talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. I've had to sort of teach myself, kind of like, no one cares about you. No one cares. No one's hanging on every word. No one's reading your words like you read your words. Just chill out and give it a go. And if you start a podcast and nobody listens, okay, who cares? No, it's not a big deal. That didn't happen. But you start a Substack, which I did recently, and no one reads. Okay, who cares? Like, just give it a shot. Doesn't matter.
That's going to be in your obituary. I've seen they're already writing that. That'll in history. He started Substack he started a Substack.
Yes, I will be. Yes, I will certainly be renowned for my Substack. There's no question. Yeah.
This has been great. Appreciate your time. This has been awesome. Thank you so much.
No, it's my pleasure, Peter. Thanks.
To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically.